Huawei poses an existential threat. We've identified the adversary, and its name is Huawei. Our partnership with Huawei ends today. This company represents a clear and present danger to our national security. These weren't just corporate talking points or political soundbites. This was the official stance of the world's most powerful government toward a single private corporation. But here's the question nobody in Washington wanted to answer. Was this genuinely about one company's behavior, or was something far more fundamental at stake? On November 6, 2025, an event unfolded in China that triggered immediate alarm throughout Apple's headquarters in Cupertino, California. Huawei launched pre-order sales for their Mate 70 Air smartphone. Within hours, technology analysts worldwide recognized this wasn't simply another product release in a crowded market. This was a strategic declaration that the rules of engagement had fundamentally changed. While Tim Cook and his executive team were grappling with an 18.2% collapse in iPhone sales across China, during the final quarter of 2024, Huawei had just demonstrated they'd engineered something capable of completing what American sanctions had initiated: the displacement of Apple's dominance in the world's largest smartphone market. The pricing alone told a compelling story. The Mate 70 Air carries a starting price of just 4,199 yuan, which translates to approximately $580. And this device delivers specifications and features that make Apple's $1,200 iPhone 16 Pro Max appear simultaneously overpriced and underpowered. That's not marketing hyperbole. That's measurable reality. Let me provide proper context for what's happening to Apple in China. Their sales declined 11.1% to $18.51 billion in the final quarter of 2024, representing their weakest performance since early that same year. For the entire calendar year, Apple witnessed iPhone shipments throughout China plummet 17%, dropping from 51.8 million units in 2023 to just 42.9 million in 2024. During the critical fourth quarter shopping season, sales crashed 25% compared to the previous year. Apple's position deteriorated from commanding 19% market share and holding the #1 ranking to falling into third place with merely 17.1%. Meanwhile, Huawei surged to 18.1% and Xiaomi captured 17.2%. This marks the first occasion since American sanctions took effect that Huawei has reclaimed market leadership. And they accomplished this using entirely domestically produced technology that Western experts had confidently declared impossible to develop. The engineering marvel nobody saw coming. The Mate 70 Air measures an astonishingly slim 6.66 millimeters in thickness, establishing it as the thinnest flagship device in Huawei's entire Mate series history. But here's where the engineering becomes genuinely remarkable. Inside that impossibly slender chassis, Huawei's engineers successfully integrated a 6,500 mAh silicon-carbon battery. For proper comparison, consider that the iPhone 16 Pro Max contains approximately 4,400 mAh of battery capacity. That represents a 47% larger power supply packed into a body that's actually thinner than Apple's latest flagship. This isn't incremental improvement. This is a fundamental leap in battery technology and thermal engineering. The structural frame utilizes aerospace-grade titanium alloy, the identical premium material that Apple charges substantial premiums to include. This titanium is wrapped in ultra-ceramic glass that rivals Apple's ceramic shield technology in scratch resistance and impact protection. Despite these premium materials and the massive battery, the entire device weighs just 280 grams. It carries both IP68 and IP69 water-resistant certifications, meaning it can survive prolonged submersion and high-pressure water jets. Now let's discuss what's genuinely causing sleepless nights throughout Apple's executive offices. The Mate 70 Air ships with two different processor variants, the Kirin 9020A and the Kirin 9020B. This is where the technology story becomes absolutely fascinating. The 16GB RAM configurations received the Kirin 9020A processor. These models are priced at 4,699 yuan for 256 gigabytes of storage and 5,199 yuan for 512 gigabytes. That converts to roughly $650 to $730. The 12GB RAM versions utilize the Kirin 9020B chip, starting at 4,199 yuan for 256 gigabytes and 4,699 yuan for 512 gigabytes of storage capacity. These processors are manufactured by SMIC, China's largest semiconductor foundry, using what industry analysis suggests is a 7nm N+2 fabrication process. And here's the critical geopolitical point. They're completely domestically produced. China isn't depending on Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, Samsung, or any foreign semiconductor manufacturer that could terminate supplies with a single policy directive from Washington. The sanctions that were supposed to work. To appreciate how remarkable this achievement truly is, we need to understand what Huawei overcame. In 2019, the Trump administration severed Huawei's access to American semiconductor technology and manufacturing equipment. The restrictions intensified dramatically on October 7, 2022, when Washington implemented comprehensive export controls specifically engineered to destroy China's capability to manufacture cutting-edge semiconductors. The United States applied intense diplomatic pressure on the Netherlands to prevent ASML, the Dutch company that maintains an effective monopoly on extreme ultraviolet lithography machines, from selling this equipment to Chinese buyers. These machines, which cost between $150 million and $200 million each, are absolutely essential for producing the most advanced semiconductor chips currently possible. Without access to these tools, without the ability to purchase the most sophisticated manufacturing equipment available anywhere in the world, without the intricate global network of Western suppliers that enables modern chip production, China wasn't supposed to possess any pathway to compete at the technological frontier. Yet here stands Huawei, holding a processor that delivers complete fifth-generation wireless connectivity and computational performance that rivals Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, one of the most powerful mobile processors available from any manufacturer worldwide. According to detailed analysis from Tom's Hardware, the Kirin 9020 integrates a fully in-house developed 5G modem supported entirely by domestic front-end module technology. This makes the chip not merely a product, but a powerful symbol of technological resilience against American economic warfare. The display technology is equally impressive by any objective measure. A 7-inch AMOLED panel delivers 2760 by 3120 resolution with a 120 Hz refresh rate. That's physically larger than the iPhone 16 Pro Max's 6.9-inch screen and the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra's 6.8-inch display. The device operates on Harmony OS 5.1, Huawei's proprietary operating system that has evolved substantially from its original Android foundations. While the absence of Google services, including the Play Store, Gmail, Maps, and YouTube, creates significant challenges in international markets, Harmony OS has matured considerably within China's vast domestic market, where locally developed alternatives have flourished to fill every gap. The system now offers deep artificial intelligence integration through the Kirin chip's neural processing unit, seamless cross-device connectivity throughout Huawei's entire product ecosystem, and performance optimization specifically engineered for their hardware architecture rather than generic Android compatibility. Charging capabilities include 66 watts via USB-C, reaching full charge in approximately 1 hour, with 50-watt wireless charging also available. The device incorporates beta satellite communication functionality, enabling users to transmit text messages or location coordinates from remote areas where traditional cellular signals disappear entirely. A feature Apple only recently introduced. The camera system features a 50-megapixel main sensor with optical image stabilization, a 12-megapixel telephoto lens offering 3 times optical zoom, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 10.7-megapixel front-facing camera for selfies and video calls. The device launched in 3 color options: obsidian black, feather white, and gold silver brocade. Official sales commenced on November 11, 2025, timed precisely with China's massive Singles' Day shopping festival, the world's largest annual retail event. The strategic threats multiplying for Apple. From Apple's strategic perspective, this development represents multiple converging threats that compound each other. The pricing strategy alone creates enormous competitive pressure, offering flagship specifications at literally half the cost of premium iPhones. This isn't competing on features. This is competing on value proposition in a way that makes Apple's pricing model appear indefensible. Beyond pure pricing dynamics, Huawei is demonstrably out-innovating Apple in critical technical areas. While recent iPhone generations have actually increased in physical thickness to accommodate larger batteries and more sophisticated camera systems, Huawei achieved precisely the opposite: a dramatically thinner profile while simultaneously expanding battery capacity by nearly 50%. That 6,500 mAh battery potentially translates to a complete additional day of usage time compared to equivalent iPhone models. For consumers evaluating devices, that's not a subtle difference. That's transformative. Perhaps most threatening from Apple's perspective, Huawei now produces its own processors, operates its own operating system, and has developed a comprehensive ecosystem of services and applications. The international sanctions that were explicitly intended to cripple Huawei's smartphone business have instead forced dramatic innovation across every dimension of their operations, resulting in a company that no longer depends on American technology suppliers for anything essential. Ming Jiang, a research analyst at Counterpoint Research, stated, "This represents the first occasion since the ban that Huawei regained the leading market position, with sales increasing 15.5% year-over-year, driven substantially by launches like the Mate 70 series. Meanwhile, Huawei shipped 46 million smartphone units throughout 2024, achieving 37% year-over-year growth and capturing 16% market share. Vivo led the overall Chinese market with 17% share and 49.3 million units shipped. The silicon-carbon battery technology pioneered in the Mate 70 Air could establish new industry standards that every competitor will eventually need to match or exceed, potentially rendering traditional lithium-ion battery chemistry obsolete within flagship smartphones over the next several product cycles." Official sales have now commenced. Huawei is definitively back in the competitive fight. The comeback is measurably real, and Apple's leadership knows exactly what it means. The display that breaks all records. But the Mate 70 Air was merely the opening move. Huawei followed immediately with something even more audacious. They released a smartphone featuring an 8,000 nit display, the brightest smartphone screen ever manufactured anywhere in the world. That's nearly 3 times brighter than most flagship phones currently available in 2025. The United States invested years implementing the most aggressive technology sanctions in modern history, specifically designed to prevent Huawei from manufacturing phones with exactly these capabilities. The strategy failed completely. The Mate 80 series launched with 4 distinct models, and we need to examine how this technological achievement was possible and what it signifies for everyone watching this industry. Let's begin with the product lineup, because Huawei isn't approaching this conservatively. The base Mate 80 starts at 4,799 yuan, converting to approximately $660. That's your entry-level flagship configuration with a 6.75-inch display and the Kirin 9020 chipset. Ascending to the Mate 80 Pro brings pricing between 5,999 yuan and 7,999 yuan, roughly $825 to $1,100, featuring the same 6.75-inch screen, but incorporating the superior Kirin 9030 processor in 12GB RAM configurations. The Mate 80 Pro Max represents the super flagship category at 7,999 yuan to 8,999 yuan, approximately $1,100 to $1,240. This version upgrades to a 6.9-inch OLED display with 16 gigabytes of RAM and the Kirin 9030 Pro chipset. Then there's the Mate 80 RS Ultimate Design, the luxury variant priced at 11,999 yuan to 12,999 yuan, about $1,650 to $1,790. This becomes the first Mate or P series phone ever to incorporate 20 gigabytes of RAM, the highest memory configuration Huawei has ever offered in any flagship smartphone. Now regarding that 8,000 nit brightness specification, most flagship phones currently available achieve somewhere between 1,500 and 3,000 nits at peak brightness under optimal conditions. The Mate 80 series nearly triples even the highest end of that range. You can operate this device in direct desert sunlight, on a brilliant beach during peak summer conditions, anywhere with harsh lighting environments, and the screen remains perfectly readable without any strain whatsoever. Huawei paired this extraordinary brightness with 1 to 120 Hz LTPO adaptive refresh rate technology, high-frequency PWM dimming specifically engineered to reduce eye strain during extended use, and an enhanced touch sampling rate that makes every interaction feel instantaneous and responsive. This display technology alone positions the Mate 80 at the absolute pinnacle of the global smartphone industry. But here's where the situation becomes particularly intriguing. Huawei refuses to share detailed chip specifications, presumably because of ongoing sanctions sensitivities and intellectual property protection. However, they did disclose performance metrics that tell a compelling story. The base Mate 80 delivers a 35% performance improvement compared to the Mate 70, which operated on the Kirin 9110 processor. The Mate 80 Pro with 12 gigabytes of RAM demonstrates a 35% performance increase over the Mate 70 Pro that utilized the Kirin 9020 chip. The Mate 80 Pro with 16 gigabytes and the Mate 80 Pro Max both achieve a 42% performance surge compared to the Mate 70 Pro Plus with its Kirin 9200 processor. These aren't marginal generational improvements. This represents a massive technological leap. And Huawei accomplished this while completely severed from access to advanced Western manufacturing equipment and expertise. The camera systems demonstrate identical levels of technical ambition. The standard Mate 80 incorporates a 50-megapixel main camera with a second-generation red maple primary color sensor, a 40-megapixel ultra-wide camera with an f2.2 aperture, and a 12-megapixel periscope telephoto with an f3.4 aperture. There's also a 1.5 multispectral channel system that substantially enhances color accuracy and dynamic range across diverse lighting conditions. The Mate 80 Pro upgrades to a 50-megapixel main camera with a 1/1.28-inch sensor, maintains the 40-megapixel ultra-wide, but introduces a dual periscope telephoto system offering both 4 times and 8 times optical zoom. This dual periscope configuration is genuinely innovative because it eliminates the need for digital zoom interpolation at multiple focal lengths. You achieve true optical quality at both zoom levels, which translates to sharper, cleaner photographs without any image degradation from computational approximation. The Mate 80 Pro Max and Mate 80 RS Ultimate Design extend this even further. They feature a 50-megapixel macro telephoto camera and a 50-megapixel super telephoto camera, delivering 6.2 times to 12.4 times optical zoom. These flagship models also include a physical variable aperture mechanism, giving photographers manual control over depth of field and light intake, instead of relying purely on computational photography algorithms. The front of all 4 devices incorporates a selfie camera and a time-of-flight sensing camera for 3-dimensional facial recognition, providing rapid and secure biometric authentication. The software processing utilizes the XMage algorithm for post-capture enhancement, so photographs emerge from the camera looking stunning without requiring additional editing in third-party applications. Battery capacity represents another area where Huawei absolutely refuses to compromise. The Mate 80 Pro Max and Mate 80 RS Ultimate design both standardize 6,000 mAh batteries. The base Mate 80 and Mate 80 Pro offer 5,750 mAh. All four phones support 100-watt super-fast wired charging, 80-watt wireless charging, and 20-watt wireless reverse charging, enabling you to power accessories or assist friends experiencing battery depletion. These capacity specifications ensure you can engage in gaming, stream video content, utilize navigation systems, and run intensive applications throughout an entire day without experiencing battery anxiety. The design language shifted from curved to flat screens across the entire Mate 80 lineup, reflecting broader industry trends toward durability and usability. Flat screens offer superior drop protection, fewer accidental edge touches, and dramatically easier screen protector compatibility. The phones utilize a flat frame construction with rounded corners and a 2.5D treatment at the edges for comfortable handling. The rear features a circular camera module that deliberately echoes the Mate 40 design philosophy, and there's a second circle representing the wireless charging coil. Together, they create a figure-8 shape that's both functionally purposeful and visually distinctive. The gold version received particular attention with a unique texture treatment. All four models achieved IP68 and IP69 certifications for water resistance, high temperature resistance, and pressure resistance, ensuring operational durability under genuinely challenging environmental conditions. The sanctions elephant in the room. Now let's directly address the sanctions reality that looms over this entire story. In 2019, the United States government blacklisted Huawei and systematically began severing chip supply and Google services access. In October 2022, the U.S. government imposed sweeping export controls explicitly aimed at crippling China's ability to develop and manufacture cutting-edge semiconductor technology. In September 2023, the Netherlands, under intense American diplomatic pressure, imposed even stricter limitations on lithography machines available to Chinese chipmakers. ASML, the Dutch company maintaining an effective monopoly on EUV lithography machines costing $150 million to $200 million each, was prohibited from selling to China. China accounts for over 40% of ASML's global sales revenue, but those restrictions were strategically designed to sever Huawei from the essential tools required to manufacture advanced chips. The logic was straightforward and seemingly ironclad: eliminate access to the tools and you destroy the capability permanently. But Huawei survived by methodically constructing an entirely domestic supply chain. They developed the Kirin 9020, 9030, and 9030 Pro chipsets using SMIC's 7nm N+2 fabrication process. Manufacturing yields reportedly sit at only around 20% compared to the typical 70% required for commercial viability and profitability, but they're ramping production volumes regardless. The 8000 nit display technology, the LTPO adaptive refresh capabilities, the PWM dimming systems, the dual periscope camera architecture, the physical aperture control mechanisms, and the XMage computational photography algorithm are all direct results of Huawei being forced to innovate independently without any Western technology partners. The Mate 80 series operates on Harmony OS 6, a fully independent operating system with deeply integrated AI capabilities, eliminating any residual dependence on Google's ecosystem. This product launch conclusively proves that sanctions didn't stop Huawei's technological development. They redirected innovation priorities and forced the company to construct everything themselves, from fundamental components upward. The result is a smartphone that competes with and in multiple specific areas, demonstrably exceeds anything available from Apple or Samsung. The 20GB RAM configuration in the RS Ultimate design establishes a new benchmark for mobile multitasking capability. The 8000 nit display remains unmatched globally by any manufacturer. The 42% performance gains represent a massive generational leap forward despite acknowledged manufacturing challenges. Whether you can actually purchase one of these devices depends entirely on your geographic location. If you're in China, this represents a compelling flagship option with competitive pricing and comprehensive ecosystem support. If you're outside China, availability is extremely limited. There are no Google services whatsoever, and warranty support becomes highly questionable. But the larger story transcends whether any individual consumer should purchase this particular phone. The larger story is that the most aggressive technology sanctions in modern history completely failed to prevent this product launch. Huawei just conclusively proved that severing access to Western technology doesn't kill innovation. It forces targeted companies and nations to construct alternatives. And those alternatives are now competing at the absolute highest levels of the global smartphone industry. The desktop revolution nobody noticed. On November 2nd, 2025, something occurred that Silicon Valley desperately hoped would escape public attention. Huawei quietly released two desktop computers that fundamentally transformed the dynamics in the technology war between the United States and China. The Qingyun W515Y and W535Y aren't simply another product launch in a crowded market. These machines represent the first occasion when a Chinese company has manufactured desktop computers that don't require a single American component to function operationally. Right now, at this very moment, these systems are being deployed throughout Chinese government offices and state-owned enterprises, operating on processors that Washington officials had confidently declared couldn't possibly exist.